Hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am Mr. Warren Hayes, and it is September 18, 2024. Today, we are going to be talking about professional wrestling. That's usually what we do here on a weekly basis. Talk about pro-res right here on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes, or on your favorite podcast application, wherever it is you decide to jump in. Thank you very much, and leave a like on YouTube, leave some 5-star ratings, leave some 5-star reviews. Those things help out a tremendous deal. I appreciate it in advance. Thank you very much. We're in week 2 of the new format of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show, where instead of sitting down and recording the podcast on one occasion, I record here and there, some offline and some on stream. I've been streaming a lot more, and the streams are a lot of fun. If you have the opportunity to make it to one of the streams on YouTube, that would be great. I no longer stream exclusively on Tuesday nights. I do it frequently during the week, maybe 4 or 5 times a week, and they're a lot of fun. And it's really changed the way that I approach making content, and especially the fun feels back. Like, it's a lot of fun. It feels different. Sometimes you just got to mix things up to make things feel good again, and ensure that the quality is there that you're putting out into the world. So lots of positive things, lots and lots of positive things, and I'm glad that you're around for the ride. And we're continuing this week again, a mix of pre-recorded things, a mix of stream highlights. We're going to be talking about, I'm going to be reviewing the CMLL anniversary show, the 91st anniversary show that happened just a few days ago, last Friday on the 13th. We've got some business news regarding AEW and the big rumors now that we've got some more. We've got some reports coming in that are giving us more juicy details about what is coming for AEW. So we'll talk about that, some business news, and so on and so forth. The contracts, the health updates. Got a bunch of stuff, folks, and we're going to start straight off the bat with some stream highlights for you. Thank you for being here. By the way, let's get to it. Yesterday, on September 16, John Orend of Puck News published a report saying, basically giving some details on the AEW TV deal with Warner Bros. Discovery. He started by saying that there was going to be, let's read off the article on the Figure 4 online Wrestling Observer site. Orend stated that a formal announcement of the long-awaited deal could come as soon as next week, barring any last-minute changes. Key figures of the deal, according to Orend's report, include new AEW WBD media rights agreement will be 4 years, and that 4 years is 3 years guaranteed plus an option. The amount for each of these years is $170 million, in the ballpark of $170 million is what I should say, on an annual basis. AEW programming will air on TNT, TBS, and True TV twice a week. As it points out here as the Observer points out here, this is part of a WBD strategy to make TBS and True TV more sports-oriented. As it stands in the report, as it stood in Orend's report yesterday, there was no mention of AEW pay-per-views airing on Max, and AEW is also pitching a package to broadcast channels, which we also knew about, or at least that was heavily rumored, not that long ago, like just about 2 weeks ago. It was starting to leak out there. We had Ibu of Wrestle Purists, I believe, was the first to talk about it. Then Dave started confirming some stuff, and I can't quite remember the timeline, but it's something to that effect. And we're still getting reports that AEW is indeed trying to secure a deal with someone else outside of WBD, which is pretty interesting, to say the least. This deal marks a clear success for AEW, which launched 5 years ago with a threshold WBD deal, Oren wrote. Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez discussed the report on today's episode of Wrestling Observer Radio, today being the 17th of September, with Meltzer noting a key part of the deal will be whether AEW's pay-per-views are included in what WBD receives for the $170 million paid annually. This is what Dave had to say here, the exact quote. If it's $170 million, not including the pay-per-views, that's one number. If that includes the pay-per-views, it's not as big of an increase. It's not really technically a doubling of the rights fees they'd received previously, but it would be a substantial increase, Meltzer said. Another potential source of revenue growth for AEW is in international media rights agreements, particularly on stations and in countries where WWE's programming will be moving to Netflix. Dave opined here, when it comes to the international days, next year opens up a lot of content, only because WWE will be getting out of all those international deals. Canada, the UK, India, everywhere. Australia, Philippines. That is such a great Dave quote. Canada, UK, India, everywhere. Australia, Philippines, whatever country. It's such a great Dave quote. Yeah, like honestly. International TV is not a giant number. It's not a big number for AEW. It can grow bigger. The WWE deal in India and the UK are both substantial numbers, he continued. So yeah, like, Dave is right. Let's not forget that there's a couple of markets opening up because of the Netflix deal is worldwide. According to the numbers in Oren's report, the new media rights agreement will make AEW the most profitable company in the history of wrestling other than WWE. Dave added here, as far as next year, 2025, AEW would be the largest grossing pro wrestling company in history other than WWE, and would actually be larger than WWE was until the Austin era, or Steve Austin, right? Inflation makes that sort of a misleading statement, but as far as profitability goes, it would be the most profitable company that there has ever been in pro wrestling, except for WWE. So there's quite a lot to unpack in this regard. Let's be completely honest. And then on top of that, BJ Bethel, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, today on September 17, seemed to get a little more information, and he's in the know. He's got the sports journalism stuff going. Investigative reporter, so on and so forth. He's got some bylines. He says he tweeted out the following: the new AEW deal does confirm Max. Pay-per-views will probably eventually end up on the network. This will be an evolving deal. Not everything is going to launch in January, but expect Max pay-per-views at some point, and for regular streaming of the TV shows to begin sooner. So essentially, rolling out what Bethel is saying here is that things will be rolling out one at a time. We shouldn't expect everything to just arrive in one lumps, and that makes sense. There's a lot to go over here, and there's some questions in the chat too that we'll take a little look see. But first and foremost, $170 million per year for 3 to 4 years is tremendous money that they're pulling, right? If I'm not mistaken, I think that Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics had estimated that AEW was receiving with their current deal, $70 million a year from Warner Bros. And I think that he's we're clearly doubling up. Now, if the $170 million includes the pay-per-views as opposed to what we were all expecting, like before, I'm jumping a couple of gates here, but let me try and walk you through my thought process instead of just like jumping to the conclusion. So in the original report from John Oren, he said that it was 170 million, no mention of the pay-per-views, what was going to happen with the pay-per-views. So a lot of us were saying, okay, well, Tony is still shopping that around. He might take the pay-per-views somewhere else and he will get some extra money on top of the 170 million. And then we started figuring, well, we might be getting actually really close to 200 million a year then, instead of just the 170 here, instead of just the 170 million here. But if we're to believe Bethel, I honestly don't know how to pronounce his last name. If the pay-per-views going to Max is good for the consumer, like it's great for us, but maybe it turns out to be a little underwhelming if it's included in the 170 million. Because don't forget one thing, we've got three television shows that WBD is picking up that are going to run all three shows for 52 weeks in the year, right? No seasons, no breaks, 52 weeks straight in a year for 170 million for three shows, three live shows on top of that. If you're also throwing in your pay-per-views and your streaming access into this amount, I think it's still a great number, don't get me wrong, but I feel like maybe there's a little more that could have been scratched at. And I'm absolutely not going to sit here and say that this is a bad number, that this is that AEW is getting shafted, because that's no one can make that argument with a straight face. No one can say that this is a bad deal for AEW. They're making so much more money now. Like, if this is the path we're going down, 170 million that people will receive, that they will receive every year. Like, that's tremendous. So it's still great, but I would have expected maybe the pay-per-views to add a little more value, bring a little more to the table. I don't know, maybe AEW will be able to recoup maybe in what they don't get in rights fees. Maybe they'll be able to recoup in the percentage that they are going to get out of streaming on Max or having the pay-per-views be on Max, for instance. So yeah, I mean, that to me is something interesting to point out. But yeah, I want to underscore, like, because I agree, even Oren says it, this is a tremendous deal with AEW. This is the thing that we can't lose sight of. This is a company that's been around for 5 years, a professional wrestling company that has been around for 5 years and is already going to position itself as being profitable. And that we haven't seen in such a long, long time. Dave said it himself. And, when it comes to that type of information, you can lean on Dave, right? AEW next year will be the largest grossing pro wrestling company in history other than WWE. That's just amazing. Just 5 years into it, you have to chalk this up as a success. We can start nitpicking about the pay-per-views and whatnot, but this is a tremendous victory for AEW to get this type of amount, if that is indeed what we're going to get, right? Because we'll break this down in due time when we finally get the numbers, when everything is actually signed and announced, which might actually be next week. So, Grand Slam next week. Sure, why not? The idea that they're doing also programming that will air on TNT, TBS, and True TV twice a week is also an interesting, a little interesting choice of words. A little interesting choice of words. Does that mean that there's going to be reruns, repeats, and are there is everything going to end up on these networks? Because I think most of us had heard that WBD wanted to have True TV become more of a sports oriented channel. So that's interesting. So it will be very interesting, actually. And then the thing that I'm very excited to see develop and come to fruition is this idea of AEW pitching a package to broadcast channels. We talked about it. We opined, not that long ago on the possibility of AEW getting a deal with Fox. Fox, who, by the way, completely buried WWE, right? We'll pull that up on stream in a second. Let's try and at least finish up this topic. But, the deal itself, the deal elsewhere is very interesting. I'm very curious to see how that's going to turn out. We can all think that I think we all agree that the Shockwave thing is going to be the thing, right? Wherever it ends up, I believe Tony is using this as the possibility of opening up a relationship with a new partner and see how this could go. Instead of just sending everything over to Fox, let's say, we're speculating here. I think it's pretty cool to be able to say, well, look, I'll send you an hour of programming. Let's see how it goes. And we'll talk again in a couple of years. And if you want more, I'll give you more. That's how you start up business relationships. I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me. And I think maybe that this is I think Tony might be angling to do other things than Warner Bros. Discovery, because look, the deal is for 4 years, 3 years plus an option. Like it's not an extensively long contract. It's not even 5 years. So you kind of feel like Warner Bros. Might not be super into this, that they're doing this sort of, but they might not be really into giving them any long-term contracts at this amount at the very least, So maybe Tony is like, look, I'm going to keep my options open then. I'm going to chat with this partner over here, and I'm going to maintain my base here, and we'll see what happens in 3 years. In 2 years, actually. In 2 years, we're doing this all again, folks. When you think about it, in 2 years, we're going to be back to the type of discourse we're having right now, where it's like, oh, AEW, they're in the mud, they're not going to get another deal. It's starting all over again in 2 years' time. Like, I think that's the thing that breaks my heart the most, is that we're still not done with all this nonsense. Look, you sort of get a vibe like with a 4-year with a 3-year plus 1 year option contract, that Warner Bros. Discovery is playing it safe. Someone is playing it safe at the very least, and might not be super keen on a renewal. But then again, AEW has renegotiated its contracts with WBD before they came, well, it was Warner Bros. At the time, before the merger happened, but they did renegotiate their contracts twice before the contracts ever coming up. So is that a possibility? Is that something that could also happen throughout these years at Warner Bros? Sure, maybe. I mean, it's interesting, right? And of course, these are all reports. We're absolutely going to dive a lot deeper into this when the time comes. I might even have a guest on to help walk us through this. But yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating time. To answer a question in the chat, no, there is no mention of Ring of Honor. Is Ring of Honor part of this package that Tony is trying to sell elsewhere? Maybe. That absolutely could be a thing. But there is no mention of Ring of Honor at all at this point. We'll just have to keep our eyes peeled, and because Ring of Honor is going to have to factor in somewhere, somehow, and if it's not on WBD, it's going to be somewhere else. There's no way Tony is sustaining Ring of Honor on Honor Club, which no one is watching. We'll see how that happens. Zach in the chat says maybe Max is another distributor of AEW pay-per-views on top of Triller TV, DAZN, etc. A non-exclusive deal until they find someone that is willing to pay for all the pay-per-views. Maybe that, but I feel like, and I saw the reactions in the chat as well. I feel like a lot of people are expecting, and I'm not saying I'm right here, but I feel like I need to temper expectations. I feel like a lot of folks are expecting AEW pay-per-views to just be available on Max and no questions asked, and just like you sign into Max and you have access to the pay-per-views. I remember some talk months ago about Max, combining with Bleacher Report to create like a paid sports tier, right? And there was some talk that maybe AEW might end up in that. The point that I'm trying to make is that I don't think AEW is going to go down the WWE route and just be like, sure, here are pay-per-views for whatever monthly subscription you're paying for the service. Right now, the pay-per-views are the only business metric in consumer-facing business metric in AEW's portfolio that is performing well. Ratings are fluctuating, and they're, year over year, they're down. And attendance is in the toilet, where it's not good. So, but the only place where they keep scoring high because consumer confidence is there is their pay-per-views. My question to you, gentle viewers, is would AEW abandon this revenue stream of pay-per-views, highly successful, in which they sell probably on average 130 to 140,000 a show? Would they give that up to go onto a streaming service? And I don't have the answer because I don't see all the numbers. But if you're doing 140,000, you're selling 140,000 pay-per-views a pop, let's say. I know it's not exactly that, but let's say on average, or 130. At $60 a pop, that is a lot of money. That is still a lot of freaking money. So, all I'm saying is temper your expectations in regards to the pay-per-views going to Max. If they do go to Max, I think it's going to be to usher in a paid tier and not to just be the buffet and an all-you-can-eat buffet for whatever Max is worth, and just like gobble it all up. Like, I don't think they're going to go down that vein. I don't think they're going to go down that route. And I think Zach is right too, in the sense that it probably won't be the only distributor, because Max is not available in all regions worldwide. Like, it's not available in Canada, for instance. So there will still be a requirement for AEW pay-per-views to be distributed internationally on other venues. Maybe they continue the relationship with Triller and DAZN and YouTube and so on and so forth, right? ppv.com, all those places. Maybe we'll continue down that route as well. We'll just have to see. We'll have to see how this develops. But it's some very interesting news, very encouraging news. It's exciting stuff. the haters and the bad faithers are scrambling right now. I've seen some tremendous takes saying that probably lawyers are going to be very upset at all this information leaking. And I'm like, do you really think that this stuff is being... It's wonderful how naive some people are, right? How little media literacy they have, thinking that this is like leaked by some, whistleblower backstage, as opposed to, this stuff being purposefully leaked to reporters. Like it's very interesting to see this stuff go down, where instead of just these people realizing it's like, oh, well, the slant that we're starting to see is it's not as big as WWE's increase. Of course not. Like, who was expecting? Like, only the dumbest people on earth were expecting that, right? But of course that it's not as big as WWE's. Well, of course not. What are we talking about? That guy says, I don't know what's best for the company. I am only in it for what's best for me, and I will be disappointed if it's anything else. Look, trust me on this, and I said it, right? Trust me. The best consumer-facing decision that they can do is just dump everything on Max, and it's included in your subscription, so you can continue listening to Succession and Game of Thrones and Smiling Friends. Alongside that, you'll have all your pay-per-views, and you'll be able to go back and watch old shows. For me, that's what I'm most looking forward to. Being able to pull up old Dynamites, old Rampages, Collisions, all that stuff. That's what I'm excited about. Hey, and there's a rumor too. I just thought of it here, right? Isn't there a rumor that Collision might end up on Thursdays? Did I see that right? 8 months ago. Maybe I dreamed it. Maybe it was just a dream. I feel like that was the thing. I feel like there was a report saying that Collision in this new deal might be moving to Thursday, which would be interesting, right? You have the Dynamite on the Wednesday, the Collision on the Thursday. Very interesting. Anyway, to be continued, as they say. Wanted to talk about this. WWE to hold fewer live events in 2025, potentially increase ticket prices. On the eve of their first anniversary after merging both WWE and UFC into the publicly traded TKO, the brand's president revealed some news on the live event front for WWE fans. Speaking at the Goldman Sachs Communicopia and Technology Conference Wednesday. What a fucking mouthful. What? Like, this is your event. The Goldman Sachs Communicopia and Technology Conference. Communicopia and Technology Conference. Goldman Sachs Communicopia and Technology Conference Wednesday. Mark Shapiro said that they are continuing to trim, quote unquote, marginally profitable, non-televised events that Vince McMahon liked to run when he was trying to expand the brand name in smaller cities and regions. Going from what Shapiro said was 300 events in 2023, he said they will put on 250 shows this year and then drop down to close to 200 in 2025 in the effort of margin expansion, which is financial speak for an increase in a company's profit rate. I love, who wrote this? Which is financial speak. What a great, Josh. Good job, Josh. I appreciate this. Which is financial speak for an increase in a company's profit rate. He did not specify whether the 200 number included NXT shows as well. As he has done in the past, Shapiro said that they remain underpriced on WWE tickets and joked that he yells at the WWE team about not making prices higher when they are selling out so fast. He mentioned they didn't have dynamic pricing tools in the past, indicating the trend of ticket prices increasing as demand increases has taken over the concert industry could be coming to WWE. Triple H is running from the grind. A lot of people seem surprised. I don't know I mean, I think this is something that had to be expected as we were. I think this is something that had to be expected as we entered an era where WWE was going to be owned by the parent company of UFC. Basically, they're going to be following that model where they're going to create they're going to create a false scarcity of shows, right? If they're not running as many, like, instead of you running the smaller towns, the smaller towns, the smaller venues, and just waiting till they go with the pay-per-views and the TV tapings. I don't know why I blanked out on TV tapings of all things. Since they're probably going to continue focusing on those and cut down everywhere. Well, I mean, what are you doing then? You're creating an artificial scarcity for your product. This is 100% like the TKO way of doing things, right? That's exactly what they do for a living. Is that that's what they did with UFC. It's a question of having less shows and putting them on in big venues where you can jack up the prices and make, as they said here, expand their margins. That's essentially how it goes. So I'm not like, I'm telling you, I'm not surprised in the least. And can you imagine, like, Shapiro's there and he's telling the WWE people, our tickets aren't expensive enough. He's shaking his fist. He's on a conference call. And he's got Nick Khan and Paul Levesque and whoever the fuck else. And he's going, you're not charging enough for these tickets. Gouge them more. They don't care. They cheer. When we go after a show in an arena and we go in the middle of the ring and we tell them, this is the biggest gate that we've ever recorded for an arena. They cheer. They don't know they're being gouged. They're proud of it. They're proud to give us money. These are our whales. And honestly, I also think this is something that is going to affect another thing that UFC and TKO like to, mess around with, and that is wrestler contracts. Because, I'm not saying that they're going to, call up Roman Reigns and say, hey, since you're doing less dates, let's renegotiate your contract, because you won't be around. That's not what I'm saying. But maybe for newer people, maybe for, people coming up through the system, whatever, maybe they'll end up not making as much as, the talent, a lot of the talent currently. Maybe they're not, UFC is not exactly fair when it comes to their contract, to their contracts with their fighters. It's a point of contention that's been for years. There's class action lawsuits, and the like. I mean, I would not be surprised if next thing we hear is suddenly, we start to hear people being disgruntled because they're not making as much money. So we're not going to pay as much because you're not working as much. When you think back, pre-pandemic, right? Because everything changed after that. But if you recall the quarterly earnings, calls that WWE would used to do, I'm sure you'll remember, if you followed that stuff, that the live event business was unprofitable. They were not getting, for the live shows, I'm not talking the TV tapings, we're talking about the house shows. They weren't getting a fraction of the attendance that they're getting today. Like, it truly was a money-losing business that WWE still continued because, as it was mentioned in the article here, Vince McMahon felt he needed to run these towns nonetheless to keep the brand alive, to keep the name alive, right? But TKO has a completely different perception on this, where it's like, our brand is big enough and we don't need to be going around traveling to all these small towns. We just need to do the big destinations, right? But for the longest time, WWE live event business, the house shows specifically we're talking about, was tanking. And everyone who was observing things was like, throw this out the window. Stop doing this. You know, there's nothing out of it, right? There's nothing to get out of this. Shapiro continued, we got more quotes here. He said with the current Peacock deal for their PLE archive content coming up in 2026, they feel incredible about that deal coming up and that it's beautiful that they all have all these deals in place for Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, putting over Netflix strongly as a battleship that will help them grow their brand and audience. What do you think is going to happen in 2026, boys and girls? I'm giving you one chance. I'm giving you one single chance to tell me what's going to happen in 2026 when the Peacock deal is up. On the PLE deal, Shapiro said the 12 monthly events are exciting and that people know all about the shows. He said the WWE fan base is a casual sports fan, an entertainment fan, lots of women, very, very young. I don't know how casual a sports fan they are. Not when Monday Night Football has been WWE's greatest competition forever, really. Anyway, he said they are in a really strong place and plan on doing a lot of listening with all the potential suitors for the PLEs. I still maintain that some way, somehow, TKO is going to figure out a way to get the PLEs back on pay-per-view. That we are going to, I'm sure that they are looking at the numbers AEW is pulling, and they're like, imagine what we could be doing. I don't know if the PLEs were included with the Netflix deal. Were they? Am I talking out of my ass? Is the question. See, it's always like, whenever I read about it, it's Netflix becomes the home of WWE Raw, right? When Netflix will be when the thing starts on Netflix in January 2025. Other content, blah, 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 blah. In the United States, Peacock will continue to air PLEs until 2026. Now, do we know that this means that they're going to go to Netflix? I mean, I'm assuming, right? I'm assuming they would take the US domestic PLEs then to Netflix. You know, this is the Raw, the press release for WWE and Netflix for Raw, right? Oh, here we. Likewise, as part of the agreement, Netflix will also become the home for all WWE shows and specials outside the US, inclusive of Raw and WWE's other weekly shows, SmackDown and NXT, as well as the company's premium live events, including WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Royal Rumble. So again, this is all international. I mean, I guess it would make sense for them to bring the PLEs, but you know, I still think they're trying to find a way. They're still trying to find a way, I'm sure, to monetize the PLEs more than that. But then again, maybe they don't care. Maybe with all the guaranteed money that they have, they're like, pfft. But a company as greedy as TKO is, you know, who, as we're seeing right now, are reducing the number of live shows to jack the prices of their tickets for other shows, you know, to create an artificial scarcity for the WWE live events. You know, I wouldn't be surprised in the least if they flip this on their head and were like, you know what, we're doing we're not doing PLEs for on subscription services anymore. You're gonna have to shell out some cash. At the very least, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, and the Survivor Series. At the very least, the big four. That would be my. I still think that they have to be wondering how they can pull this off. You know, get the big money deal, get the big media rights deal, settle in for 10 years on Netflix, and then continue making more money. I wouldn't be surprised. I will say, you know, the language is just vague enough. The language of the press release, vague enough to say, when it comes to, as part of the agreement, Netflix will become the home of all WWE shows and specials outside the US, as well as the premium live events, including WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Royal Rumble, blah, 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 beginning in 2025. We're going to hold our breath. I'm going to hold my breath till 2026 once the Peacock deal is done. I wouldn't be surprised if they'd want to, if they're going to shop that around. Or maybe they're just going to, drop it on Netflix and whatever, and it'll be fine. But I would not be surprised if they shopped it around. Like everything else is morseled right now, right? You have Raw on Netflix. You have SmackDown on USA. You have NXT on the CW. And why not throw the PLEs on, whatever service, the UFC's service, or, get some good brand synergy going, or some other service that they can latch onto. So, I mean, if you were upset at the idea that, if you were upset that you were paying too much for your WWE shows, well, we're not done yet, partner. You're not done being upset yet. Upcoming WWE show in St. Louis moved to WWE NXT show in St. Louis moved to Chesterfield, Missouri. I love the name of that town, Chesterfield. My mother and my grandmother, when I was a kid, they'd call the sofa the Chesterfield. Like, to me, it's a very cozy word. So the NXT show for October 8th has been moved. WWE announced on Friday that their show in St. Louis has now been moved to the factory at the District in Chesterfield, Missouri. The post on their website reads, the NXT event scheduled for Tuesday, October 8th at the Enterprise Center in St. Louis has been relocated to the factory at the District in Chesterfield, Missouri. Refunds and exchanges are available at all original points of purchase. Tickets for the NXT event at the factory at the District will go on sale next Wednesday, September 18 at 12 p.m. Central via the Ticketmaster. Randy Orton has been advertised for this event. Of course, he's from the area, so I think it's interesting, and it's making me pull up some WrestleTix data here. The last Enterprise Center update that WrestleTix has given us for the NXT show on October 8th had the total count of tickets distributed at 2,196. How big is the Enterprise Center? It's an 18,000 seat arena. All right, this is big time stuff. This is really like something here. 2,196 tickets were distributed. And I guess that's why they decided to go to the factory at the District. The factory at the District, it has 3,000? Has a capacity of 3,000? 3,000? That's a hell of a difference. Like, I thought we were moving like to an 8,000, 10,000 seat arena. 3,000. I'm shocked. So they're going from an 18,000 seat venue to 3,000. So I guess they were looking at the capacity. They were looking at how the tickets were moving, and I guess they were really not satisfied because, and I don't blame them, 2,196 tickets, they've been on sale for a couple of weeks, and Randy Orton has been announced, right? Like we said. I mean, I know they're doing good business in Chicago. That's very interesting. That's fascinating, actually. And they're like, and it's just exchanges or refunds. Exchanges, right? They're doing exchanges and refunds, so you can carry over your ticket over there. So I guess they're betting that a lot of people will keep their tickets to go from to go from St. Louis to Chesterfield. I just think it's interesting that this is not like getting reported and blasted and thrown around and, you know, people piling onto it. That it's just like, oh, this is a thing that happened and now we're moving on, right? Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting that most of wrestling media is just, you know, dropping this and no one else is, like, this is not blowing up? Because can you imagine? Let's just have let's just have ourselves a little hypothetical here. Arthur Ashe tickets are not selling well. You know, it's a 20,000 seat arena. They've got, like, I don't even think they've broken 5,000 yet. The show's in 2 weeks. Can you imagine if AEW were to come out and say, well, we're moving the show from Arthur Ashe Stadium to something smaller in the New York area? Like, I don't know. Something, you know, comparable. A 7,000 seat arena or whatever. Can you imagine the absolute teardown and the AEW is dying? Can you imagine the reaction that would occur? How people would just completely destroy the AEW in this. They just tear them down and it would be, oh, another failure. AEW's dying in the mud, and it'd be covered everywhere, and there'd be talking points, there'd be thought pieces. You'd have numerous Wrestle Talk thumbnails. You'd have Eric Bischoff, you know, doing little victory dances. You know all this would happen. But this here, oh, it's being reported. But I ain't seen no call, you know, no calls that this is some kind of doomsday moment, because everyone's being reasonable here for some reason. Oh, isn't that interesting that we're all being so reasonable? WWE is hot. Not saying that this is the beginning of the end, that this is a turning point. We have to see a pattern. If this becomes the new norm, if this is the new regular, oh, well, then we'll sit around and we'll have a nice discussion about how everything started to go down observably on this date and then this date and this date. This is just a one-time thing. But it's the same thing with AEW. Like, people would just trounce this. But most of wrestling media, you know where their bread is buttered. You don't bread the butter, you butter the bread. Just remember that, kids. They know where their bread is buttered. They know that WWE right now is what's driving the traffic. I can also observe things on my end. And when certain things about WWE get talked about, I see an uptick in interest, in click-throughs and whatnot. I can observe it too. I'm not a dummy. And but it's like a lot of these outlets are fans. They're just fans. They're fans of WWE. It's probably what they grew up watching, and they don't want to say bad things about it. They don't know how to say bad things about it. They want to say bad things about the challenger, about the brand, the other guys coming in trying to take their spot. No, there can only be one. We are pro monopoly in terms of pro wrestling, right? We don't want variety. We just want one thing. And even if there are other promotions out there, we don't want them to be different. We will accept them if they do the thing that we like. We don't want things to be different. It's a weird little thing. It's something that is observable, because it's funny, like, no one's losing their mind over this. Where are the 1,200 word thought pieces? And this was published yesterday. The news broke yesterday. I don't know. Again, I'm not sitting here, you know, tap dancing on WWE's grave. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, this is actually a smart move. You cannot deny that this is a smart move to do. If you've rented out an 18,000 seat arena, you're putting in 2,000 people in there. As of right now, and the show's like on October 8th, so it's like in 3 weeks-ish, 4. But then, okay, we'll move this. I think it's a smart move. Don't get me wrong. I'm just a little flummoxed at the lack of interest. Now, look, could it be that maybe Randy Orton is not as much of a draw as people think? Yeah, I think so. Already announced, we got Ethan Page versus Trick Williams. That doesn't bode well. Roxanne Perez versus Julia. It's not moving. We're not moving tons of tickets here. We're going to go fill up a 3,000 seat arena, and people are still going to call this a success. Not that it's a failure. It's a smart move. But you have to look at the pattern here. Again, they're going to do great in Chicago because it's Chicago, because they're bringing in CM Punk, etc., etc. That's a whole other thing. Clearly, whatever strategy they have here is not working. I think you can argue that this is a testament to the roster of NXT. They're not able to fill up basketball arenas on the strength of the NXT brand alone, or with Ethan Page as world champion and Trick Williams. None of Roxanne Perez or Julia, none of these people are draws, clearly, because they have to move venues. It's an interesting little tidbit of news. First of all, we are going to start talking about Sheamus, who signed a contract extension with WWE. They have reached an agreement to keep the 46-year-old in the company. It was announced on today's episode of the Pat McAfee Show, today being September 17, that Sheamus has signed a contract extension, although the length of the deal has not been disclosed. And McAfee said, we are incredibly lucky to announce Mr. Banger after Banger himself, Sheamus, the big fella, has officially signed an extension with WWE. I think also Fightful Select reported it as well. So listen, I know there was, when talk started to appear that a couple of months ago, right, that Sheamus's contract was about up. There's a lot of people who are like, why doesn't it go to AEW? That would be interesting. And you know what? Like, there's a bit of morbid curiosity that happens with me in these types of situations with wrestlers like Sheamus, who have been so ingrained in the WWE system that, at some point, I kind of want to see what they can do outside of the system. And I want to see, I was like, well, what would a Sheamus match with Jon Moxley in 2024 look like, And I'm going, there might be something here, there might be something, to it, but I didn't put much thought into it because I'm like, look, this is a guy who's going to want to stick around. This is a guy who's a lifer there. Even though I really believe that he, over the past couple of years, he's done the best work of his career. I think he's been systematically one of the best workers in the company. And he's been more over, I believe. I would challenge that he's been more over in the past couple of years doing the ass kicker gimmick and then the whatever the fuck with Pete Dunne and Ridge Holland. I would say that he was more over now than he was back when he was babyface world champion and Vince was putting all of his cards into him, right? Or like when Sheamus and Claudio, yeah, you'd have Sheamus and Claudio reuniting. I mean, the Bar was a great team. I'm sorry to say. The Bar was tremendous. So, look, good for him. I'm not surprised. I what else do you want from me? Like, I'm just like, I really would have liked to see late stage Sheamus go to Japan. You know what I mean? Like, go to don't tell me, if you tell me that a Tomohiro Ishii Sheamus match would not interest you, you're a bald-faced liar. Or against Manabu Soya, or against Hinare. Don't tell me that wouldn't have, got your gills flapping. You gill flappers. It's not going to happen. We talked about this on last night's stream, but for the record, on the podcast today, we're going to just underscore this. Armando Alejandro Estrada signs a WWE Legends contract. He confirmed it on Twitter. I'm happy to announce, this is him on the tweet. I'm happy to announce that I have signed a 5-year Legend/Nostalgia contract with WWE for special appearances and merchandising, including action figures, video games, and more. Great to be back in the fold with them. Like, all of the statements that we've seen with people getting these new nostalgia contracts are all the same. Action figures, video games, special appearances. Like, it's all... they're copy-pasting what PR is sending them. I mean, look, I'm not going to rehash it. We talked about it on stream yesterday. But, Armando Estrada is absolutely, legitimately one of these trivia questions. Or, you're pulling a sporkle, right? You're having a sporkle time. And you're doing a sporkle time. And you're trying to name 20 managers from the 2000s, right, in pro wrestling, and you've got one left and you can't think of anyone, and then it pops up, and then it pops up when the time is up. It's Armando Estrada, and you go, oh my God, I forgot about this guy. Because that's what it is with this dude. Like, no one remembers Alejandro Estrada, not in the same way that you remember multiple other people, other people that might have these Legends contracts. This guy is like, oh yeah, it's the guy who was the mouthpiece for Umaga, and that's pretty much it. No one has fond memories of this guy. No one's going, hot damn, we'll finally be able to flick cigars in WWE 2K 2025. It's like, nothing of that is real. So, good for him, but like, who could possibly be going, hell yeah, Armando? And we were chatting about it last night on the stream, and we're saying he'll probably end up in the bloodline angle. It's like if he starts making appearances because of his connection with Umaga, right? Towards the health part of health updates part, the Blade underwent successful back fusion surgery. The 44-year-old has been out of action since February. This was we talked about. This was learned on September 11th, last Wednesday. He's been out of action since February with the lower back injury. He posted to Instagram on Tuesday to say that he recently had the successful back fusion surgery, saying it was a great success. Thank you everyone for your continued support. Not much to add in. Means a lot to this grizzled vet utility brother. So there you go. Like, good for him. Like, honestly, I'm glad the surgery went well. Will he be able to wrestle again? That's a whole other story, but good for him. I'm glad that it's working out and that he got the surgery. I hope he heals up well, heals up fast. Thunder Rosa is apparently dealing with a concussion. She revealed on Busted Open Radio on September 15 that she has been dealing with a concussion that will need a couple of weeks to recover. Rosa's last match took place on August 31st. It was on AEW Collision when she competed in a 4-way against Serena Deeb, Queen, Aminata, and Hikaru Shida. Before that, she had defeated Deonna Purrazzo in the bull rope match on the August 10 edition of Collision, which was I was going to say unsurprisingly, that's what I was going for, very good. Because AEW's long tradition with the women's division is having great hardcore / plunder matches. This is what she had to say. I feel like if you feel like you have a concussion, make sure you stop. Don't get in there. It's not worth it. I can tell you right now, I'm suffering a concussion. So I'm going to be out for a little bit, for a couple of weeks, is what she said. So we'll see how it goes. Concussions suck because they can also have long-term effects for wrestlers. Might not be able to bump in the same ways as they once could. So I hope she gets better soon, and that hopefully the concussion is as light as possible. This is also something we covered on a stream over the course of the week, but again, want to make sure that it shows up here on the podcast. Jake Lee has suffered a foot injury, and he's been pulled off some New Japan shows. Jake Lee was being evaluated after suffering an injury at New Japan Pro Wrestling's Road to Destruction event on Wednesday. That would be, the 11th, September 11th. Lee was injured while teaming with Dave Finlay and Gabe Kidd against Hiroki Goto, Tomohiro Ishii, and Yoshihashi in a 6-man tag match. New Japan has confirmed that the injury is to Lee's right foot. He's been pulled from the Road to Destruction shows. There is still no date for Lee's return. I mean, I guess the good part here is that it's his foot that's hurt, because he has had a knee injury in the past. So a lot of people were fearful that he re-aggravated that injury, that he might need a lot of time off. Hopefully, no one seemed, they haven't come back with a big statement, so it's obviously not as bad as what Yuya Uemura is dealing with right now. But nonetheless, we hope that the injury is not too severe and that he gets back to work very soon. Steph DeLander says she needs neck surgery. She announced to the crowd that she needed neck surgery at TNA Victory Road on Friday. DeLander was set to be a part of a match teaming up with Matt Cardona against PCO and Rhino. Before the match started, she took the microphone to announce the news, saying that she's in pain every day. She went on to say later that this isn't a retirement speech. This is not goodbye. I'll see you later. Later on X, she said that it's not an angle. Yes, this is real, is what she said. And responded to a negative fan that the reason for needing neck surgery was from landing on my head for 7 years to entertain dumbasses like you. It's interesting because last week, Steph DeLander was on our on this segment as well here on the show, but on the contract side of things, because she had announced that she had signed with TNA till the end of the year. So I don't know what's up with that. I don't know if because remember, I thought it was kind of curious that she was, I thought it was kind of curious that she was signed to TNA, but only till the end of the year. So did TNA know about the neck injury? And they were like, look, we'll help you out and we'll give you a contract till January 31st. But then after that, we'll see how things go, kind of thing. We'll talk again. Maybe, I don't know. It'll depend on how long she's gone. I mean, it sucks. It's a neck injury, and it seems severe enough for her to be pulling out and saying, it's like, I'm not retiring. So that, that's pretty significant, if you ask me. So that'll be one to keep an eye on. And Hiroyoshi Tenzan is also another guy from New Japan who is off the current Road to Destruction tour due to a knee injury. It was announced on September 17, today, when we're recording, that after suffering an injury to his right knee, the 53-year-old Tenzan will miss the remainder of New Japan Pro Wrestling's Road to Destruction tour events. A timeline for when Tenzan will be back in action was not provided. So yeah, we hope he as well has a speedy recovery. I know Tenzan works a lot with the young guys backstage. I think his presence is well appreciated, so I'm sure that it will be missed. And that's what I got in regards to injuries, health updates, and contract news in the wacky world of pro wrestling. We are now going to review the CMLL Aniversario show, the 91st anniversary show of CMLL that happened just a couple of nights ago on September 13, 2024, of course, from Arena, Mexico. Another packed arena, all ready to go, and people excited for the proceedings. There was a lot to look forward to on the show. Did I enjoy the show? Yeah, I did. I thought overall it was a good show. I think there's stuff that happened on it that kept it from being great, but there are some great matches on it. There's a lot of really good things that happened on the on the show, I should say, and a lot of talking points, which is why we're here. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm pretty excited about this, this is my first full-blown CMLL review, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think I've ever broken down a big CMLL show review. I've talked about matches and events, but I think this is the first time I actually do it. It's a good opportunity to do it on the anniversary show, which is their biggest show of the year. But I'm also happy because I'm starting to feel more and more comfortable talking about CMLL, formulating thoughts about CMLL, getting some opinions about CMLL. As many of you know, as I've pointed out a couple of times in the past, if 2024 will have been good for anything, it's going to have been good for me learning about CMLL, getting into it, and then starting to get curious about it, starting to look up some things, try to understand what's going on, try to get a grasp of the history, what it all means. You always have superficial understandings about lucha libre, but it's a different thing when you start digging, when you start getting into it, when you start reading stuff like Lucha Blog to keep you informed and to see what exactly is going on, what's going on behind the scenes, how what is happening ties into things that have happened recently or in the past. So I feel like I don't want to give the impression that I'm suddenly establishing myself as this top tier lucha libre expert, which is far from the case. But I feel like I'm more and more in a position now to talk about it, how I feel with American wrestling. Now I feel like I still have my training wheels on, but at some point you have to take the training wheels off and you have to just ride the fucking bike. So that's what I'm going to do here. Start and go in proper with a true to form CMLL review. I mean, if you're members of the MrWarrenHayes Show Discord, you know that I opened up the CMLL channel on the Discord a while back now, and I've been as active as I am on the Discord. It's one of the channels where I take a lot of fun in talking about it and sharing. And I wish we had more people jumping in and joining in on the CMLL chats, not just based off of things that are happening, in AEW or, with stuff in WWE, actual focus on CMLL. That would be great. But we're going to get there. You have to build these things. It comes one step at a time. But all of this it's not a pitch for you to join the MrWarrenHayes Show Discord. I want to talk about this good show that I saw. I think this show demonstrated a lot of things. It demonstrated that relying too much on outside talent is a roll of the dice. I think that it demonstrated that the younger talent is tremendous and is one of the reasons that CMLL is doing so well. It also showed us that there are people not getting pushed who should. There's a lot of things going on here. especially when it comes to the young talent, there's often the thought that a successful promotion will always try to veer away from focusing on the older talent and will build up fresh new guys who will be able to hang with the old talent and really have like a generational shift so that you can feel that happening. You can argue that this is something that a promotion like New Japan should have been doing for the past couple of years, and people thought were doing, or at least were, lining up to do it. But, last year, everyone thought this was a big year for the Reiwa 3 plus Yu Uemura, and turned out to really not be that way. We focused back on to the older guys, the guys who carried New Japan through their excellent 2010s. And I think over-reliance on the older acts ultimately hurt them. Let's call them the legacy acts, because they're not necessarily old, but maybe over-reliance on Tanahashi, on Naito, on Okada. One of these guys just like packed up and left. The other guy is he's been washed for a while, and now he's office. And the last of those guys is Tetsuya Naito, and I mean, he's not in great shape. How about we put it that way? Put it politely so that the Naito army doesn't come after me. Despite the fact that I am a huge Tetsuya Naito fan, sometimes you just have to accept reality for what it is. So instead of going hard into new talent, we've all had these people hanging around, and now either these legacy acts are not around anymore, or can't deliver on the levels that they used to. Now we have a situation where the younger talent have to catch up quickly to be the next stars, as the current stars are all like fading away. Here you have an example on the show, where like instead of booking really some of the older acts, some of the truly older acts that the CMLL can have, they're establishing young guys moving forward, like Futuro and Neon and Max Star and Mascara Dorada and Atlantis Jr. And they even have more guys that they can lean into that weren't featured on the show, but that they can still call upon and lean into to be a part of this new crop of superstars that is going to keep the interest. And I don't mean that in the WWE sense. I truly mean like as a superstar that CMLL then can lean into to guide into the future, right? Like the Villano 3 kids and Zandakan Jr., who are all tremendous, and they're all very young. They're all stupid young still. So there's a lot of that going on the show, which is super refreshing, because I think it'd be fairly easy for them, CMLL that is, to just turn around and start pushing, start putting back out there some of their older acts. I mean, there are some older acts on the show that are still in prominent positions, but they're allowing the younger stars to shine here as well. It's really a good little happy medium here. It also showed us that there are people not getting pushed who should, but what I like the most about the anniversary show is that it feels like you have to earn your spot. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like they're just not giving out. They're not just trying to put everyone on the who's on the roster on the show. It really does feel like you have to earn a spot here. You've had a good year, whatever, you have to be in contention for pushes, etc., etc. I think that's good. I think that's a good thing, because it keeps things interesting throughout the year, because there are people on the show who were not on the show who I felt, could have been there, personal preferences. But, look, let's just get to it. Let's start talking about the show. Why don't we start with the top two matches of the card? One was the main event, and the other was actually the main event. That makes sense. And we're going to start with the one that was the main event. How about that? We'll get that out of the way, where Mystico defeated Chris Jericho. This match was not good. I'm sorry. I am sorry to report. I think it's getting trashed a lot online. I think that, people are calling it, people are saying like it's an unholy mishmash of stuff, but people are saying it's just like the worst thing ever. There's worse matches, but that doesn't mean that this is excusable. And I don't think it was good. I think it's a very mediocre match. Both Jericho and Mystico in this match didn't perform. It was slow. I don't think they had any chemistry at all. I don't think they had any proper understanding of what they wanted to do. I think this is just what I think. I think Chris Jericho was coming in here to do his type of match, but CMLL Arena Mexico specifically being Mystico's house, he should have been like, no, you're playing by my rules. This is how we're doing it here. I'm the guy here. Now, I inherently didn't have a problem with Chris Jericho being on this card. And I know tons of people poo-pooed on it, called it out, said, oh, here we go, Chris Jericho putting himself into a main event again. Now, I know it's very fashionable to be a Chris Jericho hater online. I know it's super fashionable, but as I've learned, because of reading, because of talking to people, listening to conversations, as opposed to just reacting and shutting down to everything, Chris Jericho's history with CMLL is significant. It is the place where he went to, spent 3 years in CMLL? He spent 3 years in CMLL developing himself to become the wrestler that would lead him to success. What was he doing before that? He was, wrestling in Stampede, he was, that took him nowhere. And, what was he, tag teaming, with Lance Storm? Oh boy. It's like, he decided to pack up and go to Mexico for a couple of years. And he worked in CMLL, right? And they love him there. And he's part of the fabric of CMLL. I don't know if you know about Arena Coliseo, which is the other arena that CMLL runs. It's smaller, smaller venue. They have, if you've seen footage of the Saturday shows, you know what I'm talking about, the Saturday CMLL shows. They have banners and posters of all of the legends and great acts of CMLL, of the history of the company, all hung around that arena, right? And Chris Jericho is there. Because from what I understand from reading Lucha Blog, look, I'm not hiding behind, strange, eldritch conversations that I've had with people. You can head on over to luchablog.com and read the exact same stuff that I am and educate yourself on this stuff. Get some of that knowledge into you. No one out there, I think, does better reporting than Cubs fan in regards to Lucha Libre, at least not in English. Cubs was saying that when it comes to guys like Chris Jericho for CMLL, they take a point of pride here in him, in that kind of situation where the guy comes to their promotion to learn how to wrestle. And then from there, they go off and have a great international career. So for them, it's a point of pride to say they came to us to learn how to wrestle. And once unleashed onto the world, they became this international superstar. And that's, thanks to us. And Chris Jericho in his books has always talked very highly of CMLL and his experience in CMLL. Like, he loves the place. So I didn't have an issue with this match happening. And in fact, I'm kind of like, oh, this is interesting. You know, ships passing in the night when it comes to Jericho and Mystico. An international star coming in to fight Mexico's superstar. Like, okay, I'm very interested in this. Like, it had some good beats to it, and I was like, maybe this will be like just something tremendous, right? Turns out I was wrong. Turns out, like I said earlier, what we ended up getting was a very, very mediocre match where two guys were just trying to do things each on their side. And I think the right thing would have been to have Mystico just do Mystico things and Chris Jericho be on the receiving end of things. I don't think he needed to make this a Chris Jericho match. I don't think he needed to land his shit in necessarily. I feel like, you wrestle the top dog. You'd wrestle Hogan in the 80s, right? You'd wrestle Hogan in the 80s. Well, you're wrestling Hogan's match. You know what I mean? I'm drawing this comparison here because I think it makes sense. Mystico has a style. Like he has a formula, just like any top guy does. He has a formula. Hogan had a formula where he'd start off the match hot, get some licks in, and then the heel would do something dastardly to get in control, and he would have one long control segment. You'd pepper in some hope spots in there until finally Hogan mounts his comeback, hulks up, does the point thing, beats him down, leg drop, then Hogan must pose. That was essentially the formula. This was the formula for Mystico. That is the well, it's not the same formula, but Mystico also has a formula that is very similar in intent as opposed to it being similar as to how they're executed, but it's similar in intent. And I think, Cubs fan pondered that maybe Mystico was thrown off because Jericho was trying to do stuff, which is possible. But look, it really went both ways here. It was a hodgepodge, but both had their parts and responsibilities to delivering this very, very uninspired, disappointing match. But man, look, I've got to ask the question, and I think the time has come to have some serious conversations about this. Is Chris Jericho the in-ring performer washed? Is he done? I praise his character work, the way he can keep himself over just when you think you're writing him off. You're saying this is boring. It's finally time. Send him to the glue factory. He somehow finds a way to get back on top of things. Somehow he manages to do that. But his last AEW pay-per-view performances have not been great. They've been part of the conversation for some of the worst matches on the card. His last wasn't it the Forbidden Door? Like his last match, right? He was at All In, right? Against Hook. Well, on Cage Match, it's the worst rated match of the show, if I'm not mistaken. It's tied with Mercedes Moné versus Dr. Britt Baker. They are both at 4.38 stars. He had a fun little outing at Forbidden Door, which was the trios match. His gang and Jeff Cobb versus Hook, Katsuyori Shibata, and Samoa Joe. Then he had the three-way match, the hardcore three-way match at Double or Nothing, which was the worst match of the show. Then he had the match at Dynasty, the match against Hook, that hardcore match, which was absolutely a bad match, and was the worst match of the show. Same thing, and look, like, he's not alone here, but it's the same thing. He's in the number one contendership scramble, right? That Wardlow won. He's in there too. And it's the second worst rated match on the show. And so on and so forth. Am I seeing a pattern here? Am I seeing a pattern? Maybe we need to come to grips with the fact that Chris Jericho, entertaining, a very good pro wrestling entertainer, but maybe the days of Chris Jericho, good pro wrestler, are behind us. His record, his track record for 2024 has not been great. And I think just the idea of him being able to get himself over again when people were demanding that he retire, the fact that he was able to get himself over again via the learning tree stuff is, adding a layer of concealer to the acne of his matches. How about that? How about that for some imagery, for an analogy? Or is it a metaphor? No, it's an analogy, right? Right. I'm the English major. I decide. So anyway, but that's a sidebar, because the match itself, I don't have many notes about it, because, I thought even down to the La Mística, it looked horrible. Like nothing is working, nothing is connecting. But the decision to run an AEW angle after the show, that was weird. That was really, really weird. And I can't say I was sitting there going, hell yeah, clapping my hands. I was like, this is bizarre. Especially because Orange Cassidy ran out. And Orange Cassidy, earlier in the night, was a Rudo. Like, he was not a fan favorite. And yet here, he's coming in to save Místico and then does the endorsement, by putting the sunglasses on. And I'm like, this is fucking Místico. He should be endorsing you. He should be giving Orange Cassidy a mask and putting that. It shouldn't be the other way around. It's so weird. The fact that this went is strange. Like, CMLL, think about it this way. CMLL accepted that a guest promotion on their show, not on a co-branded pay-per-view, right? That they're a guest on their show. They agreed that a guest on their show could run an angle on the aftermath of the main event of their biggest show of the year. I'm sure there's a bunch of comparisons that are popping into your mind, like, what if X did Y, right? Like, that is if to say, what if, at the end of WrestleMania 41 this year, Naomichi Marufuji ran in and attacked Cody Rhodes. And, then Cody Rhodes was saved by, Kaito Kiyomiya. And then the blow off between those two would happen on a Noah show. It's all kind of weird. It's all kind of bonkers. It's weird because AEW never promoted the show. Like, they never said Chris Jericho heading over to CMLL to fight Místico. Like, they never promoted the show. They only mentioned that this happened on Collision and on social media through a video package recapping what happened, that recapped it in a way to present like Jericho had defeated Místico. I think, since this was a 2 out of 3 falls match, I think they being the editors, they didn't watch the show. They saw that Jericho had Místico tap out in the walls, and they're like, oh, Jericho won, so here are the notes. But no one paid attention. No one watched the show. No one even went on the internet to see. No one followed, Rob Viper or Lucha Blog on their social media accounts to see what was going on. Like, at the very least, that they see this and they just throw. So they saw that, they put the video together, and they have Tony Schiavone talking over it as if Chris Jericho had won. You know? Now listen, I want to make something clear here. I don't have an issue with AEW coming in and asking to do this. And that's just business. You go into a thing and how far can we go? Can we do this? Yes. Can we do this? Sure. Can we do this? Maybe not. Oh, well, that's fine because we can do this and this, right? What was argued here? What was the, like, was it Tony Khan who sat down with, I don't know, the Salazar? Like, first of all, who did they, I don't know, Rocky? I was like, look, I've already got 2 of my guys losing on the night. We could do this. But yeah, sure, Tony, but this is our main event. We're not running an angle for your silly TV tapings for a match that's going to have a blow off on Dynamite in a couple of days after Místico wins a match. And what are you negotiating? You are a guest there. Like, it's very strange. Like, I can see AEW coming in and negotiating and, and being a hard negotiator, saying, look, we helped you out with your women's title situation. We sent you our girl. She's been carrying it around. We've been doing good on that. She's losing tonight. I got Orange Cassidy that we flew in. He's on the losing team tonight. That's fine. You got to give me this. We're good partners. And maybe they're just like, yeah, that's right. You are good partners. Maybe we could do this. But it's still a dumb decision. And the dumb decision ultimately ends up into CMLL's hand. Like, they are the ones who are entirely responsible for this. If AEW is coming in and is making all sorts of requests, as they should, I don't have a problem with that. Asking things, can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do this? That's fine. But for CMLL to just go letting this pass, for saying, yeah, this is a good idea, let's do it, they're the only ones to be held responsible here. The arena was emptying out during a Místico match. Let me say that again. The arena was emptying out during a Místico match. I don't know what to tell you. This was somewhat of a disaster. I gave this 2 2.25 stars. We're very close. We were very close to bad territory. Very close. Anywho, let's move on to the real main event. The thing that should have ended the show, because it ruled. The mask versus mask 4-way match, where essentially Hechicero pinned Euphoria. There was also Esfinge and Valiente in the match, but Hechicero defeated Euphoria to unmask him. And the rules here were if you were pinned during the match, you were eliminated. And I know that, and I myself, and I've talked about this, at first I thought it was weird, because I'm like, look, I don't want to lose my mask. So if I'm eliminated first, that's good for me. I'm out of here, right? But again, reading up on things, having conversations, you realize that the mentality is, the psychology behind this type of setup is more along the lines of, if I get eliminated, I don't have the chance to take someone's mask. So it becomes much more of a macho thing, where it's like, I don't want to be eliminated. Yeah, my mask will be on the line till the very end, but I want the chance to take someone's mask because it's a big deal. And Hechicero here will have the possibility, will be able to play off the idea that he defeated Euphoria, that he took his mask, and that's his forever. And this match started off hot. Crowd was hot, and as skeptical as I was, that for a 4-way match, and I'm not a big fan of those, and especially for something like in a mask versus mask match, that's a mouthful. As skeptical as I was, this started off so quick, so good, and it kept me locked in the entire way. And at the end, I was hooting and hollering. It was tremendous. They're flying to begin with, landing big moves within the first 2 minutes, right? And Hechicero, early on in the match, gets hurt. Like, he legitimately has a torn biceps, if my memory serves me right. And we think it's off of Valiente arm drag, but we're not super sure. And he gets it wrapped up ringside while the guys are in the ring doing, monkey flips and all sorts of tremendous stuff. Hechicero's on the floor and they have the doctors wrapping up the arm, which is fucking wild, and then he gets back in and he wrestles like for another 25, 30 minutes. I don't know. I can't remember exactly when the injury allegedly occurred. And, the match was 36 minutes of just fantastic work. And it kind of reminded me of Volador Jr. last year, who wrestled an entire match with one arm basically being completely shot. He injured his arm bad, but he continued the match and was just doing incredible shit with one arm that I couldn't even do with 6 arms. But back to this. They're flying. They're landing big moves. Like I said, Euphoria locks in the Dragon Sleeper to eliminate Esfinge. He was my pick to lose his mask because I was thinking, oh, he's young. He's a handsome guy. Because I have seen pictures of him unmasked. So that didn't quite work out that way. Valiente was able to escape Hechicero's submission. Was unable, to escape Hechicero's submission. He tapped to the Magia Negra. And then these two, the Euphoria and Hechicero, they just go after each other. And Jesus Christ, they're dropping each other with all sorts of moves, pulling out kill shots on the other guy. No one's going down. Everyone's kicking out, and sometimes there's just these exhausted kickouts, where both guys are dead, and the guy getting pinned just he just uses momentum to he's not really kicking out. He's more like rolling over. It's just tremendous stuff. Hechicero keeps kicking out of stuff like the top rope power bomb, and the crowd cannot believe it. Like, they're just on their feet for this. Euphoria goes for a top rope senton. Hechicero moves out of the way and he locks in the submission. Euphoria taps. Crowd goes bonkers. Hechicero with a bum arm wins the match. Takes the mask of Euphoria, who is revealed to be Jose Leobardo Moreno Leon, 49 years old, from Torreon. And I gotta tell you, he's 49 years old. Okay, so we're at the trailing end of his career, right? I mean, he's about to be 50. I'll tell you what, after I saw that guy's mug, I was like, maybe the mask was doing him some good. The mask was good because the mask is instant charisma. Like, you get a good mask, no matter what's going on underneath, no matter what your hairline looks like, you got a mask. You look cool as hell. That's the idea, right? That's part of the idea. So now he doesn't have it anymore, and I'm looking at him like, well, oh well. At least you're not on the come up. I guess for a guy his age, at this stage of his career, it's fine. This is one of the best CMLL matches I've seen all year. Like, maybe, what are comparisons? Maybe Danielson and Blue Panther. Maybe, or at least matches that maybe I think are better. Zack Sabre Jr. versus Hechicero, that Arena Coliseo one. But this was absolutely tremendous. Like, this was absolutely a fantastic match that should have ended the show because people were into it. People loved this match. Crowd was into it, and I was too. Like I said, hooting and hollering. Now, is this some kind of sign that Hechicero was finally going to get pushed in his home promotion? Because he gets a lot of attention. A lot of people compare him to Tomohiro Ishii for New Japan, if that's an easier comparison for you. If not, well, you're shit out of luck, pal. But a lot of people do, where Ishii, doesn't get pushed in his company, is a tremendous worker, And then when he goes abroad, everyone loves him. Like, he's treated like a megastar by the crowds everywhere he goes. It's kind of the same thing with Hechicero. Never really pushed, never a top guy, goes out on to international shows, and people just love him. They gobble him up. Remember the first time he showed up in AEW, people lost their shit. He goes to RevPro, people love him there. So is this the time? Is this Hechicero's time? Well, we're gonna see. I think he wrestled one of the best matches of his career. Not the best, but one of the best. And he came across as a star. He came across as a goddamn superstar. I gave this match 4 3/4 stars. Yes, I am being a coward. I'm not giving it the full 5. I felt it just missed a little. We were so close though, where I could just like confidently jump in and say full 5. But I'll tell you what, this is worth seeking out. It is a fun time. It is a 36-minute match that doesn't have any rest holds, that just has a great pace. Guys working all the time. And we're not doing that stupid trope where, 2 guys get thrown out of the ring and then 2 guys wrestle for like 3 minutes, then 1 guy comes in and then those where you're basically, it's always like 2 guys with one guy cycling in and out all the time, We're not doing that in this match. It's right up until we actually get 2 people in the match is what I'm trying to say. Great stuff. Unequivocally, and thank God this is on the match. This was on the card. It does balance out the main event. Fantastic stuff. Let's go back to the bottom of the card here and work our way up. We had Futuro, Hombre Bala, and Max Star defeating Los Depredadores, who are Magnus, Rugido, look at me, and Magia Blanca. I thought this was pretty good until Futuro started botching towards the end. Like, it was a little sloppy in this match, and Futuro's better than this. I don't know if he was nervous. I don't know. He wasn't great in this match, and he can be a lot better than this. The Depredadores were fantastic in this match. Like, they were. I love Magnus and Rugido. Magnus is tremendous. I think they're they're 2 great singles guys, and they're 2 great tag team guys. Well, Magnus can handle. Let me correct that. I think Magnus is a good singles guy. I think Rugido is a tag team specialist. How about that? But just absolutely tremendous. Max Star was on point in this match. He was so good. Crisp, and his offense was spectacular. And he and Hombre Bala Jr. won it for the Technicos, I should say, by pinning Magia Blanca and Rugido for the win. I like this a lot, and I gave this match 3.5 stars. How about that? It was a good way to start off the show. And then it got even better with the second match here, where Angel de Oro, Niebla Roja, and Soberano Jr. defeated Neon Star Jr. and Templario. Now, Templario and Soberano Jr. need to be pushed. Remember at the top of the show, I was saying, you watch this show and you realize some guys here need to be pushed a little harder. Some guys need to be pushed. Specifically, Templario and Soberano Jr. I don't know what the issue is, why these guys aren't featured more. Maybe Templario, he just turned Technico just a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month and a half, over the summer anyway. He's still fresh, a fresh-faced Technico, so maybe they want to give him a few to get used to the role and whatnot. That's fine, maybe, but there is no reason for Soberano Jr. to not be one of the top heels in this company. There is no reason. Rudos. No reason. He's got this arrogant, cocky dude down. Like, he is so dislikable. He's fantastic. And on top of that, tremendous worker. Both guys are. So there's no, look, I don't know. They were on the show. At least they were on the anniversary show. I'll give you that much. But, I mean, I'm excited for the push. I'm excited for the Soberano Jr. push. I'm excited for the Templario push. I hope it's coming. Templario, speaking of which, ate shit in the first part of this match here, which led to the first fall. A lot of these matches were 2 out of 3 falls, as is usually the rule in tag teams. Not usually, but a lot of the time in tag teams in CMLL. But he had the big babyface comeback. After that, led his team to winning the second fall, and this is just great high octane action. Neon looked absolutely phenomenal in this match. This kid, this literal kid, right? He's like 22, I think. Oh no, I'm confusing him with someone else. He's 25, but nonetheless, like he's still ungodly young for the stuff that he does in the ring, right? He's just tremendous. And, you know, he had a breakout year, so he got a nice little spot here. That's cool. Great final sequence between Templario and Soberano Jr. And this all comes to an end when Roja gory bombs Star Jr. onto Neon, and Soberano Jr. scores the win with a top rope, I guess, tornillo onto Templario. This went 17 minutes, but I promise you it feels like 10 because the action is so good. Everyone is so good. Great match. Just a tremendous match. The only guy I'm not super sure of is Star Jr. You know, I don't know about Star Jr. I don't think he's not as good. He's not as good as Neon, and he's not as good as his other contemporaries. He's not as good as Max Star. He's not as good as Fuchiro. You know, he's just not, I don't know. But somehow, some way, this guy always ends up, you know, he ends up being in these conversations. He gets little pushies, and I don't know. We had the finals of the Copa Independencia, which was a tournament to win one of CMLL's big trophies. And basically, ultimately, like the trophy is an accessory here. What the tournament means ultimately is that you've secured a spot on the anniversary show, which is where you're going to wrestle in the finals. So that's essentially the big deal, because outside of that, it's just another trophy. Like, they do a lot of trophies, they do a lot of tournaments. Don't get me wrong, tournament wrestling is great way to tell stories, but it's just like one among others. And, you know, we won't talk about this until, you know, next year, I guess. But, you know, getting a spot on the anniversary show is meaningful because, you know, most of the guys who were in the tournament are not on, didn't make it to the show. So there's good, at least we've got some continuity here. Like, we had Averno, we had El Hijo del Villano 3. No, that's it. El Hijo del Villano 3. Dulce Gardenia, Zandakan Jr., Dark Panther, and Creeksis. The only guy who was in the tournament, see, look, this is what I was saying. The only guy who made it to the tournament, who made it out of the tournament, the only guy who made it to the anniversary show who was in the tournament and didn't make it to the finals was, say it with me, Star Jr. Isn't that interesting? So the finals were Titan defeating Mascara Dorada, and I gotta tell you, a little disappointing, if not technically real good, you know? This match had a very good story. Like, going into this match last year, many people considered Titan and Mascara Dorada's match, I think it was in December last year, November, December, considered that to be like the best match in CMLL of the year. It was a match of the year contender for many people and was just tremendous. So a lot of folks were excited to see Titan and Mascara Dorada mix it up again. On top of that, Mascara Dorada lost his previous match. Oh yeah, so I guess it was in November. Look, I don't quite remember, but it was at the Noche de Campeones, the Night of Champions, where Mascara Dorada was challenging for the welterweight title, which Titan still holds to this day. And he came really close. Like, it was a great match where Dorada did everything in his power to win, and there were some really close near falls, but it just escaped them. Titan was able to get the job done, retain his title. So people were excited to see this rematch here and see maybe Mascara get his win back, get a little revenge, even out the scales, so that we can get back onto a level playing field here. But no, it still didn't happen. Titan still was able to best him here. So, these guys coming off of match of the year last year made a lot of people excited for this one, and it didn't quite click. It wasn't quite there. Maybe an off night by the two. I didn't think it was tremendous. I thought it was a solid match. I thought it was a very solid match, but it didn't rise to the heights. And I more than solid. I thought it was good. I thought it was a good match, but didn't quite kick that next gear. Didn't reach any heights. 3.5 stars for me on that one. And two wrestlers that I really like. I am such a Titan fan. Like, I think this guy, like, overall in wrestling conversations, I think we don't talk enough about how great an overall wrestler Titan is and how good he is at doing just about everything. He's so good. He's so solid. Reliable. Zeuxis defeated Willow Nightingale to win the CMLL World Women's Championship. No surprise in that decision. I think everyone kind of saw that coming. This was a good, solid match, some good work. Started off real hot and then sort of tapered off a little bit. And then so the gas started to, they started to take the pedal off the gas for some reason. But at first, they were going in solid. I was excited to see where this was going to go. It cooled down a little bit, but not to the ends of the world, not to where I'm like, oh, it's just like it started so strong. And Zeuxis wins. I've seen talk that Zeuxis' post-match reaction to winning was odd, and it was a little odd. She seemed very dejected by the win. I don't know. There's a lot of speculation between, maybe the match fell apart and they were pro enough to hide it. Maybe the match was cut for time, because this show went long. I don't know if you know this, but this show went long as opposed to a regular CMLL event where typically 3 hours you're out. So I there were 7 matches on the card, right? 1, 2, 3. What was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, it doesn't matter. I'm not counting this. It was just very strange. Very strange. And I mean, she's a fine wrestler. I don't think she's anything special. She's no Stephanie Vicaire. And I think this is one of the reasons why, I think they ultimately wanted to put the title back on someone local, someone from the promotion, as opposed to keeping it on Willow. We've talked about this, though. We've had some discussions about the state of their women's division right now, in which they have no one really built to fill Vicaire's shoes. Zeuxis is the best possible spot because she was Vicaire's tag team partner. She's been there for a while. I feel there's other women better suited for that spot. I think they might start pushing La Catalina in that regard. She was gone because of an injury, but they had a whole profile on her on one of CMLL's weekly shows. So that would probably be my guess. I keep talking about Kira, who is still who's still not there yet. I don't think like she's a polished product, but she's got something. She has something that I think can be tapped into. All this to say that looking at all of this and looking at the match with Zeuxis, and I take a step back and I'm like, you know what? Willow Nightingale is one of the best women's wrestlers in North America. She really is. I think she's a top fiver. I think she's one of the best wrestlers, one of the best women doing this nonsense business in North America today. I really do. And, this is someone, oh shit, who said this? And I thought it was such a good call. Oh, I'm so sorry. But it's this is not an original thought. And it's someone who said this. Fuck, I can't remember. So apologies in advance if you recognize your line and you're like, Warren, it was me. Why? And you're screaming at your phone right now. I apologize. But Willow was a wrestler when she started working with AEW, like at the very start. She was a wrestler that a lot of people wanted her to be good. So usually what happens in the United States is when there's a wrestler we want to be good, especially when it comes to women's wrestling, we start overhyping her. We start saying, she's fantastic, she's so great, look at how great she is, and everything she does is great, 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 great. But she was not great. She was a good little wrestler, and people wanted her to be good, and you know what? She became good. She became better than good. She's great. I think she's great now. But now, this is why I often say, pump the brakes on people having breakout moments or people popping off on your screen and you saying, oh, these people are great. Look at how great, great, great they are when they're starting off, when they're finding their footing, when they're new to a promotion, whichever one fits the bill here. Pump the brakes on calling everyone great so that when they truly do become great, we still have some energy for them. Now the enthusiasm for Willow is not as pronounced, I guess, as when she was starting off. Whereas now I feel she would deserve it much more than when she was starting off. She truly is great now. I think she truly is great. So that's why I say, when I have discussions, particularly about the women, we want them to be good, to be so good so quickly. It's like, wait, hang on. We don't have to go down this route just now. Why don't we give them some time to breathe? Yes, they got promise, they look good, but everything has to be great. No one can see a prospect and say this person has potential. They're great. They're instantly great. Great, 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 great. And then one of two things happen. They do become great, and then you lose out. You lose steam because the hype is already passed, or they disappoint. It's either one of those two things that happen usually. I wouldn't say the same thing about Zuxis though. She's, and especially, she's got a lot of experience too. She left CMLL, came back and all that. She's been around a bit, and I think she's a fine pro wrestler. I don't think she's particularly really good. Willow, on the other hand, I think she's tremendous. 3.5 stars for me. And then we had Atlantis Jr., Ultimo Guerrero, and Volador Jr. defeating Orange Cassidy, Rocky Romero, and Satoshi Kojima. This was good, if not a little jarring, to see Orange Cassidy work Rudo. And that really threw me off in this match, where I'm like, this is strange. And I understand why they're working Rudo. They've got Volador and Atlantis Jr., who are top faces, top technicals. Atlantis Jr. gets the booze, but you know what I mean. Rocky Romero, he is a top Rudo. He's so good. He's so good at this. Hang on, I'm skipping ahead. So let me stay on the Orange Cassidy thing. It was really weird because I was like, I'm very excited to see how Orange Cassidy is going to translate in front of the Arena Mexico crowd, because I think there's a good concept. The gimmick is good enough that I think it would translate well, and I think he had a possibility to get over. But it was very weird here, and I think the gimmick works when you're a sympathetic babyface as opposed to being a dastardly heel. I think it would have worked better if he hadn't worked Rudo. But then again, I understand why they did it. Anyway, this was a tremendous trios match. This was a tremendous trios match. Everyone worked hard here. Everyone looked good. Volador Jr. rules. Kojima was right in there. Like, everyone worked hard. And Rocky Romero is epic in CMLL. That's all there is to it. Like, he is out of this world good. He is on an island when it comes to his persona, his character work. Arena Mexico hates him. And now he's getting into a feud with Flip Gordon, who is a babyface. Flip Gordon was watching from the stands. And next to his wife, his girlfriend, who was feeding a baby. Did we know Flip Gordon was a dad? They were right there she was feeding a baby as Flip looked on. And here's something that I didn't think I was going to say, but here we go. I am excited for this Flip Gordon Rocky Romero feud. I'm excited to see how this is going to go. I thought Flip tried to get involved in the match. I thought that, they're setting the seed still. This all started at the Grand Prix, where Rocky and Flip didn't see eye to eye. They were all on the same team. They were all on the international team, right? And Rocky, he is such a douchebag in CMLL. It's tremendous. He's so good. All of his work is great. So he's getting into a feud with Flip. I'm sorry. I'm excited to see how this is going to go. I know Flip doesn't have the favor. He doesn't curry the favor of online fans. Hasn't for a while. Not since the pandemic. Not since he tried to control his narrative, etc., etc. But things seem to be working out for him in Mexico, where they really don't care about your online feelings. They really don't. I mean, Flip is Flip, and there's a lot. I think there's a lot of what happened to him is self-sabotage. I'm not sitting here trying to tell you, you should give Flip another chance. No. You can do whatever you want. But I'm objectively looking at this, and I'm like, this has me interested. I am curious to see how this is going to go. I'm curious to see how this feud is going to develop. Because Flip actually works out well in Mexico. He's been doing good. Rocky's tremendous. That's period. Paragraph. There's nothing else to add. I gave this match 3 3/4 stars. I thought it was great. Really great. Well, not very, very, very good. Great is another cutoff point for me. So there you go. That was my CMLL Aniversario show review. Overall, honestly, despite all my little gripings, I thought it was a very good show. It fell short of great. I think had we got anything better as far as the main event was, I think I'd probably be higher on this show. But maybe to top this all off, I think that from what I've seen so far this year with CMLL integrating AEW stars coming in, and I appreciate the partnership. And I want this partnership to continue because I think wrestling benefits with this type of environment as opposed to promotions all being in silos, right? So I think there's a lot of benefits for the fans, for the wrestlers, for the promotions. I think there's a lot of benefits. I think so far, from what I've seen this year, in all of the events where AEW guys have been integrated into, I think this has been the least successful integration. I think Willow and Zeuxis was fine. But Orange Cassidy, Chris Jericho, I really don't think that worked out. Orange Cassidy as a Rudo was a complete fail. That was a bad call. And the main event was just a stumble. Just a complete another stumble. On top of that, having an AEW angle be played out in the main event, like that's just mind-boggling. So this I think was the worst integration I've seen so far. And a lot of people didn't like how the MJF match. against Templario. I actually liked it. Yeah, but I feel like I feel like sometimes I'm the only guy who gets MJF, and to me there were no surprises. I don't know if people expected him to adapt to the Arena Mexico style. That's not his thing. It's like, you adapt yourselves to me. Like, that's the gimmick, right? Anyway, but like Danielson coming in, the Blackpool Combat Club, and they had Willow come in earlier this year too. You remember that? Was it this year or the previous year? I don't quite remember. Could have been like late last year too, when she did a little stint there, a couple of matches. When New Japan and CMLL have a long-standing relationship, so that's not an issue either. They know how to speak and spell with each other, so that's fine. It's just a bit of a weird one. There you go. We're gonna wrap it up for this review. Yeah, CMLL Aniversario 91 or 91 whatever order. It's fine. The Anniversary Show 2024. How about that? The 91st. Check it out. It's a good show. You can skip the main event. Everything else, you'll have a good time. And there's an absolute bonkers great match that you absolutely have to check out in the 4-way mask versus mask match. And that about wraps it up for this week's edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you And that about wraps it up. And that about wraps it up for this week's edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Thank you all so much for sticking to the very end. One more shot. I'm going to shoot my shot one more time for a like on the video, for a 5-star review, for a 5-star rating. I would appreciate that tremendously. Join the YouTube channel if you want to jump in on the streams. If you want to join on all these things happening live, youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. Subscribe there. That way you'll never miss a live stream. Otherwise, I will be back on Thursday for the Dynamite review for sure. Other streams throughout the week, and then back on on Wednesday for another one of these beautiful pieces of nature, which is the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. So there you go. Hope you all have a great rest of your week. Thank you again. Now go watch some Randy Orton and get back to me. I'll see you next time.